Well, hail and good greetings on this fine Sunday morning. Hope you're all fine. Hope you're all doing well. It's summer here. It's hot outside, little humid. Spent most of the day yesterday in the yard doing yard work. Kind of fun, kind of exhausting at the same time. And the heat will drain it out of you. So today I'm awake, I'm showered, I'm clothed, I'm in my right mind, I'm wearing a summer shirt. So I hope you're all doing about the same and having a good day so far. Excuse me, so far. I'm not really burping up coffee. What is that? Extra air. So this is the place to get rid of my extra hot air. So good morning to you all. Hope you're doing well today. What's going on in your world? I don't even know what's going on in my world this morning. I know we've got strange things happening in our country, strange things happening in politics. Uh, the wool pulled over so many eyes in so many different ways, and the world is falling apart as it would anyway. What do they say? Everything is entropic. Everything runs to decay if that decay is not kept in check. So, like my kitchen sink with all the dishes, you know, you leave them for so long unchecked, uncleaned, unwashed, keep piling them up one on top of the other. What happens? You're pretty soon going to have rotting food in between dishes, and you're going to have all kinds of mess that perpetuates itself. So, that's what our world is like today. But there's also very beautiful parts of our world. If you can get away from the trappings of civilization, get away from the trappings of having to be all the things that are you're obligated to be in order to maintain your lifestyle, in order to maintain your house payments or your rent payments or your car payments or your insurance payments or your utility payments or your cable payments or the payment on your second mortgage. Everything's revolves around money, doesn't it? And yet we're warned, we're cautioned that the love of money is the root of all evil. Not money, the love of money is the root of all evil. Yet we have to spend every day trying to find a way to increase our holdings, to increase our revenue stream. Wouldn't it be nice, everybody, even the person who has just enough, they're making enough to make the bills meet, and they're making enough, I got it covered, I'm doing okay. There's still nothing extra. And they go, I can't do anything else. We can't take a vacation. We can't buy that extra thing, a materialistic thing, perhaps. We can't donate to things. How about put it in that context? All these things we can't do because we're just barely scraping by. And then I watch a lot of these historical shows, archaeological shows, stories about, and I don't know what her name is, but she does a really good show. I catch them on YouTube. She's a middle aged, or maybe a little more than a middle aged woman, kind of heavy set, kind of would look like for lack of any better description, she kind of has the look of that frumpy mom housewife where all the kids are grown up and gone now. They're all off. They got the last one off to college, and she's home alone. She's got the long, straight gray hair, a little heavy set, but well spoken, intelligent, and a little frumpy, but frumpy in an okay way. And she does this series. I don't know what her name is off the top of my head. She does this great series on ancient Rome and how she would go in and talk about the ancient Romans and talk about their lives in ways that you probably never heard before. I'll see if I can find her throughout the show here, and I'll put her name up, and you should go look her up. She was the first one who, in all these years that I've done historical studies, just this last year, I saw a show of hers where she was showing in Rome today. You can go and see some of the old ruins, and it's behind one of the temples in the Forum. on the other side of it, which faced an outer street. And there's an old, what you would consider almost a tenement building. And I mean, it's really an amazing look into the life of the common Roman. And it was 3 and 4 stories tall. They didn't have the safety measures that we take today, or OSHA, or all the governmental regulations, but they were apartments and apartment buildings. They had them back then, and stairways going up to each level and so on. And it was amazing to see that. You don't think in the terms that we use today of ancient life. So everybody had stuff going on all the time. Here's Uncle Dave. Let's bring him in. Maybe he can speak to some of this too. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I know who you're talking of, and I could not tell you her name, but I love her show. I watch it all the time.
And she's British, and she talks like this a lot, and she says, and she's very good. And you can tell she doesn't work out, walking
No.
some of these stretches while she's got the camera following her. She's like,
Did you see the episode she was at some big plaza place in Rome?
Yes.
And she takes this little scroll and she pushes it and rolls out this thing. It's got to be 20 feet long.
Yeah.
This big timeline. And she's walking along the time. People are like walking through because there's all these tourists there.
Yep.
Some people are stopping and listening to what she's saying and ignoring the cameras. And she's just going on about on this time this happened, at this time this happened and stuff. It's just great.
Yes. I'm going to, I've got in the background here, I've got my channel up over at YouTube just to see if I can see what, sometimes I can go to my home page there and I can see all the things I follow and all the shows that I've watched. And we'll see if we can find out who she is, because she's fascinating. And she's fascinating in that way, maybe because she is so homespun, for lack of a better word, in her presentation.
One of the things I like about British TV is they do complete blind casting. They don't care if you've got a big wart on your nose or what. In Hollywood, if you're not pretty, you don't get cast.
Yep.
Even if you're an archaeologist or whatever, they're only going to film the pretty ones. They don't film the ugly ones. And what I like is that London doesn't care about that. In Britain, when you're on TV, if you're the man with the knowledge or the woman with the knowledge or whatever, you're there. And even in entertainment, there have been some shows out that I looked at and go, none of these people in this cast would have ever been cast in Hollywood, and every one of these people have jobs, and I think that's awesome.
Now I can see here. I'm not seeing her name on this one here. Take a look at this, everybody, while you're sitting there. I'm going to share my screen.
I am super
so you can see the person I'm talking about. Now, I don't think you'll be able to hear her, though. So let's see. Where's my share? Right here. Share screen. Entire screen.
This is true history, warts and all.
Yes. And so here we go. Let's get to her. Here she is.
Yep, that's her.
This woman, and I'm trying to see what her name is. Let's see. The defining powers. Mary Beard. Mary Beard. And I know you can't hear that.
Look her up, folks. If you like Roman history, her show is awesome.
She's incredible. So, here she is, just walking around. You see what I mean? She looks like somebody's grandma.
And literally, like when they were talking about Hadrian's, they just dropped her off someplace along Hadrian's Wall, and she just walking out, and you're thinking, you're going to have a coronary, lady. What are you doing?
The other one is very well known, Joanne Fletcher, who does some great Egyptian history.
Yes.
If you want to see her? Oh, look at that! Look at that great CGI. I love that kind of stuff. So, but Joanne Fletcher, she's a redhead. Probably here's Joanne Fletcher. Does some great Egyptian history. There she is. Let's get her walking and talking here.
Breaking pottery.
Yep.
And
talking about
from talking with John, you would think that ancient Egyptians just walked around and smashed pots all day because there's just broken pottery everywhere.
All over the place. There's Joanne Fletcher. Somebody said she passed away. Now, these videos that she's done are a few years old, not ancient.
Oh, that would be a shame.
Videos,
but COVID took a lot of people that.
Yeah, and I don't know if she was one. Here's look at that. Coincidentally, there is Deir el-Bahri, that temple, Hatshepsut's temple. I've been right where this camera is sitting, climbing up into these caves right here. Let's see if we can get a better shot of. She's at Deir el-Bahri right here. This is in Luxor, and so you can see she's not fit to be climbing. You see her shadow with the umbrella. Climbing those mountains, sometimes I had a little trouble doing that. I'm not in the best shape, but she's out there. She's doing it. And they're breaking into this old tomb in this one. And that was full of bones. But there she is. So
she vanished.
Yeah. Crazy. So it's full of mummies and bones. One that was sealed off, but there she is. So these people are some of the best people I have found anywhere that are doing these shows, and I love what they're doing. I got to stop sharing my screen. There we go. So I love watching those shows.
I think the biggest joy I have is that I can bring YouTube up on the big screen now that I have this smart TV, and I sit and watch hours of Roman history, Viking history, all kinds of just different ancient history and stuff.
I have it planned all the time. I'll go to bed and I'll turn on the TV and Raini's like, just keep it quiet. And can you turn that off? Sometimes she'll say in the middle of the night, turn that off. The light's too bright. But I'll keep it low and I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'll see either a Mary Beard in Rome or Joanne Fletcher in Luxor or any other number of historical shows. So, Philip Blair said she reminds me of a friend of mine's mom. But the only point I was making in bringing her up is that looking historically, when she looks at Roman life, you'll find the things I started talking about. Paying the bills. Now, they didn't have a utility bill. Could you imagine living in one of those tenement buildings and not having public toilets? If you had a toilet.
Well, but they did have public toilets. They just down the first floor.
They were down on the first floor. Yep. And you had to go down to the latrine. She sat in something. I saw her the other day sitting in some place in Germany. Was it her? No, there's another guy. I think he's British too. He dresses all in a black suit and he talks like this. He's probably middle-aged and he's a bit comic in his delivery. And he goes.
Is he the art history guy?
The art history guy.
Yep, I watch him too. He'll take
fabulous.
Take a point in history and how art affected that history or how history affected that art. And then just kind of run with it. And his show is amazing.
I love him. I love his style. And, he's the guy that he'll give you the very dry humor and you don't even realize it's comic until you're done and you go, that was really funny. And, but he's an intellectual as well. And so I like his show, but he was sitting in a latrine or a public toilet. It was a Roman city built in Germany back during the Roman era. And he said, this is probably one of the most posh, he says, potties, lavatory privies that I've ever sat in. And it was made out of marble and these marble seats and the little holes in the top. And, and it's in this city in Germany. And I can't for the life of me remember where it is, but
and you all just sat there in the open with everyone. There's space for 20 people to use the privy at the same time.
Just a big bench, a big marble bench, and it was curved, and it had frillies on the handles of things and on the corners. And he says it's probably one of the most ornate surviving latrines, public Roman toilets.
And a sponge on the stick and a bucket to wash it with.
Sponge on a stick and a bucket to rinse it off. Could you imagine going to poop in a public latrine and to clean yourself?
I suppose with the with togas and stuff, you could stay fairly well covered and nobody would see anything.
There's that. And also with the sponge on a stick that they would dip in a bucket, the bucket was kind of a vinegar water. And it was supposed to be like barbers put combs in that liquid.
Right, but vinegar is an antibiotic. So
yeah. But still, knowing that somebody just wiped their butt after cascading a shite into a hole.
It makes the sphincter pucker a little bit.
And you go, that's the same sponge I get to use. Even though it's dipped in the disinfectant vinegar.
It's all rinsed and washed.
It's rinsed and washed. And they'd have slaves to do that in certain public latrines. But by the way, making a historical note on a biblical sense, remember the scene when Christ is crucified, and it says he said, "I thirst," as the story tells us, and it says they raised a sponge on a stick to his lips so he could drink, and he turned it away. He turned his head and wouldn't take it. There is theorizing historically that was a toilet sponge that was lifted up to his lips. So
I know they also talk about offering him vinegar, but the Roman soldiers at the time drank a solution of what is essentially balsamic vinegar and water mixed. And there's a Masonic thing that I've done where we use that same formula. It actually doesn't taste bad.
Yeah, well, it's like balsamic vinegar, vinaigrette.
Well, and it's watered down, so it's kind of like a wine, but it's not wine and stuff. And it's what the troops would carry in their canteens. And the reason is, again, you were not drinking straight water at the time. Had all kinds of bacteria. You never knew what you were going to get. It's like, and even nowadays, if you're traveling in other countries, you shouldn't really try and drink the local water. Drink bottled water and stuff like that. Your body will be better.
For all the times I've been to Egypt, I've never drunk local water.
Yeah.
And everywhere you go, there's bottled water, even for the locals. The locals don't drink the water.
Yeah.
And if you've ever been down like in Luxor, we went down just down the common street. There are canals everywhere that are dug out, and these canals are full of trash.
Yeah. But so this vinegar water has natural antibiotics and such in it. Yep. And so it kills off the bad stuff and allows you to drink. And so the Roman soldiers, the legionnaires, would carry it because no matter where they went, they could drink.
Well, here's the question then. And I've heard both sides of that particular argument. Historically speaking, were the soldiers compassionate and giving him some of their drink, and they put it on a sponge and raised it to his lips? And it said he refused it, though. Or was it like toilet water, bucket water?
It's hard to say. But the other side of that is he would have known that by drinking that, he's just prolonging the agony.
Yep. Yeah.
So
very possibly.
He may have been like, oh, no. I've had enough of this. I'm good.
I'm thirsty, but yeah. So, hey, I haven't said hi to almost anybody yet this morning. How's everybody doing other than Uncle Dave sitting in here with me? Who we got? We got Philip Blair is here this morning. Good to see you, Philip. And we've got Uncle Dave Potter and Sandra Saunders. I always do that on her name because of her two spellings, S-A-N for her first name, S-A-U-N for her second name, both pronounced on. Josh Kemp is here this morning. Good to see you. He says, yo, Scotty, get with me to chat later to explain the patron. The
Patreon?
Oh, the Patreon site? All you have to do is go click on it, and you can join Patreon. You can join my page. So if there's any issues you're having with it or problems with it, let me know. It should be just as simple as signing up. So there's that. And tomorrow, by the way, folks, tomorrow is the first day of our whole new Patreon system. And so it's all it is really it's saying the philosophy behind it is, would you donate a cup of coffee to this show once a month? Yeah, sure, I'd give you a cup of coffee. Would you donate the price of a cup of coffee once a month for this show? That's all. That's the philosophy behind why I'm moving it over there. And there's more to it.
And there's the added benefit. They're not going to censor you.
Right. Now, something I found out is that in order to broadcast live over there with a chat room, I still have to use YouTube. I got to channel it through YouTube, but I don't have to have it advertising anything on YouTube. I can do it as a private video on YouTube that connects the stream, and then you chat through I'm still trying to figure it out because the instructions, as always, are always vague. Go do this. Okay, go there. Okay, press that button. Okay. Now press the dot button, and you're looking and you're going, there's not one of those buttons. It's not there. Why not? So, you're trying to figure it all out.
A week or two ago, I was telling you about this guy out of Italy that does Roman history and stuff, and YouTube demonetized his entire thing, which he's making his living off of his YouTube stuff.
Yeah.
Totally affected him. He does have a Patreon page. He always put content up on Patreon. Trying to think what he calls his regular followers. I can't think, but he's got a word for them. Anyways, they were so appalled at YouTube that everyone went to Patreon and moved all their funding from YouTube to Patreon. And he came on and he was verklempt, I guess is the way to speak of it. And he said, thank you. Very humble. Yeah. And he said, you've not only saved my channel and allowed me to continue broadcasting these things, but you responded in such a way that it's so much more than we were making through the
That's
YouTube
cool
stuff. So yeah. Hopefully it'll work out really well for you. Hello, Ellie Belly. How are you today?
Hi.
Did you have a good night? Are you still kind of tired?
Jelly beans.
I know. I haven't. Honey, I've been sick as a dog. I haven't been out of my house for a long time.
Why would you want jelly beans from somebody you don't say, hi, I love you, Uncle Dave. How you doing this morning? Then you say, where's my jelly beans?
Where's my jelly beans?
Oh, you didn't say the first part.
Too bad.
There you go.
Yeah, I haven't. I will get over there, but I've just been too sick to travel. I haven't even gone to Minneapolis all last month for Lodge, and I don't ever miss Lodge.
So
everybody
says hello to Ellie over there in the chat room.
Hi.
So maybe I'll arrange a drop shipment and just have them mailed to you.
There you go. Yeah, he'll mail you jelly beans. He'll have the jelly bean fairy deliver them. I have
Anything
your jelly
else you
beans.
Want besides jelly beans.
So, that it?
We need to run a brush through your hair.
Hey, do me a favor. Do me a favor. Hey, before you go, do me a favor. Oh, she's already gotten the outer door already closed. She heard, do me a favor. Ba-dum-bum, slam. So, anyway. Yeah. Oh, you're still here. Go in the little fridge out there, please. Grab me a Diet Mountain Dew. They're way over. They're on the second shelf. On the far right. There's only like 2 of them left to 30 Diet Cokes. So, I'm almost out of coffee. Coffee's upstairs. It's still hot, but I feel like
I completely weaned myself off of Diet Dew, and then
you can do the zero Dew, sugar free.
See,
Total.
but so here's the deal on that. What are they replacing that sugar with?
Nothing. I don't.
I would rather
the sugar
have
with?
real sugar.
Yeah,
Because when you
artificial
look at how
sweetener.
diabetes works, you're better off to eat real sugar
Yeah.
and get your
Thank you.
insulin doing what it's supposed to be doing, extracting the sugar. Because when you put an artificial sugar in there, it says, "Oh, something sweet. I'll go out," and they can't find anything for it to remove, and that's how you become insulin resistant, because the insulin goes out to get rid of the sugar, and there's no sugar.
Maybe the brain does that, but does your insulin production factory in your body actually go, "Oh, that's sweet, I should attack it," or does it react to the actual chemical?
It reacts, but so that's the problem. It sends insulin into the system to get rid of that extra sugar out of the blood, but then there's no sugar there because it doesn't see the artificial sugar as sugar, and that's how you build up that insulin resistance. I think you're much better off.
I don't drink enough of this stuff for it to ever be. I drink a can every 2 days, maybe.
Yeah, that's not bad. I've completely weaned myself off of sodas, and I drink water with lemon juice in it. I do drink cranberry juice, but it's 100% cranberry juice with no sugar added. So it's just tart cranberry juice. That's good for flushing the kidneys.
Yeah, it's great for flushing kidneys. Yeah, it's harsh on the taste buds, but
I'll drink the coffee, and that's the beverages that I allow myself right now.
Cheers.
And in fact, on my table, I have a cup of water with lemon juice, a glass with cranberry juice, and a coffee.
There you go. Well, so Susie Q. Oh, Susie Q says, sorry, I can't join you. Don't have a way to pay. My man says no. So I will see you on Sundays, Captain. Okay. Tell him stop being a cheapskate. It's $4 a month. So anyway, that's it. I'm joking. I'm kidding with you.
You can watch it without subscribing.
There will probably be, my YouTube will probably carry my shows a week or two after they air live. So you'll be able to see them all the time. But ask your husband if he spends $4 a month on anything he likes. Does he get a cup of coffee once a month? Does he, it's that kind of thing.
I don't have
that was Susie Q. Susie Q has been here all the time. So one thing I found is that as long as you do and Susie, this isn't about you. This is, now I'm talking in general. If you do a free show, everybody's there. Everybody supports you. As soon as you ask for $1 a month or $2 a month or $4 a month, you find out you lose more than half your people that were your loyal listeners, because they're like, oh, I can go get so-and-so's show for free. Well, so they're not really loyal to you. You're just something else to listen to for free. So Patreon is there to help you find your followers who want to be there, who want to support you. And it ain't expensive. If you're getting roughly around 30 shows a month, which is what I'll be doing, because I'm putting up some older episodes. I'm doing some special episodes, things like that. You get 30, what is that? What's $4 divided by 30? Let's see. Hey, Siri, what's $4 divided by 30?
The answer is approximately 13.
Okay, that's 13 cents an episode. So now if we charge it annually, that would be like $60. No. What is that? What's 12 times 4? 48? That'd be $48 a year.
I'll be back with you in a minute.
But so I get it. It can be
That's what I found.
Oh, oops. Siri's still trying to answer something else. So there you go. Thank you, Randall Flagg. I'm so slow this morning. But anyway, that's the whole theory behind Patreon for me, is to try to build up a little revenue stream. I've got even this YouTube channel where I've said, hey, don't just subscribe, come and join the channel for $1 a month, $5 a month, or $15 a month is what I've had for over a year and a half up here. Out of all our listeners, do you know how many?
Could you try again?
My Siri's still trying to answer something. Siri, that's enough. Goodbye.
I'm not sure.
There we go. I don't know. It's still trying to do something. I don't know. It won't turn off is the problem.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry too. There you go. So the whole thing for me is trying to raise a little revenue so we can do a better show. Somebody said the other night, well, Izzo, the rents of Izzo, it's a great show. Yeah, well, and he doesn't charge anything. Well, no, he doesn't. But he's also on a network that of other radio talk shows where he's making like some of those guys make $30,000 a month over there. Why? Because they've got a system that is linked into a bigger system that sells advertising, that does all of that. So shows like Izzo's might be free to people, but he's not independent anymore. He's independent only so far as he's independent, but he's part of that network. So things like that. So all I'm trying to do is find a way to say, can I maintain doing this show to a degree that my followers and those who like the show enjoy? And how do I do that? Because my wife, my beautiful wife, Raini, is sometimes like, you got to stop doing so much radio. It's not producing any revenue. Things are tight, yada, yada. You all get the drill. And so what tends to go? The things that you don't have enough money to do that aren't producing revenue. So that's why I was looking for models that would help produce some revenue for this show. And I have people that say, hey, can't you go to 2 or 3 hours a night? I could. I mean, look at Rush Limbaugh. Rush Limbaugh did 3 hours a day. But do you think he wasn't making any money doing that? So this is really the purpose, frankly, to talk about why to do something, why to do a business model that adds revenue for the host so I can continue doing it. But what I was going to say is, even with a year and a half of having basically 1,200 followers on my YouTube channel that listen to this show, I never had more than 11 people that subscribed to donate money to the show. So 11 people. But everybody else was okay with it being free. And I guess that's okay to a certain extent. You try to keep it free. But if you say, hey, if you can afford a cup of coffee a month to donate, would you donate a cup of coffee to me? If you saw me and I was like, oh, I sure need a cup of coffee, would you give me a cup of coffee? That's kind of the way I'm equating it. Same with the Patreon. If you can afford a cup of coffee, would you give this show a cup of coffee a month in the form of $4? There it is. So, oh, hey, Carlene's here. Hey, Carlene. How you doing?
I'd give you a cup of coffee, especially a Starbucks cup of coffee.
There you go. Yeah, because you won't drink it.
I don't like Starbucks. Even when I could drink caffeine coffee, I just do not like Starbucks.
I don't mind their coffee.
Yeah,
coffee's coffee.
I
like
guess I'm
Caribou.
a bit fussy. I had to pop on. I had to pop on and tell everybody our inspection went flawlessly.
Well, that's good.
That was the only thing holding us up. He is pre-approved. We wait for his final say-so, and we put a deposit on the place in Virginia.
Outstanding! Congratulations.
I'm pretty excited.
I'll buy a cup of Starbucks coffee and toast you.
Oh yeah, okay. You can have my cup of coffee. Like I said, after we move, I will, and get our bank account situated, I will sign up for your site there, because I do like watching your videos.
Well, thank you. You know what? Philip Blair just said, I quit listening to George Norrie, Coast to Coast, because it was 20% or so ads. Now, I've been on Coast to Coast 6 times, and I know we only really talked about 20 minutes an hour. The rest was ads and different things. There were a lot of ads. Now, but does George Norrie charge for his show? No, you can go listen to it on the radio. You know why? He's got advertisers that do that. Now, we don't have advertising on my show, and so you get 100% show, other than my own ads when I'm talking about my own junk. So you get pretty much 99% of my show is show material or communicating and talking with everybody. And so how do you augment that? Does George Norrie make money off of his show? Sure he does. It's his living. Is this my living? Well, I'll tell you this. The only reason my wife balks at how much time I do radio is I do enough radio to equate a full-time job. Because you could add up all the hours I do per month on radio and go, well, that's not a full-time job. Well, then you have to add in the research time. You have to add in the advertising time, my promotional time. You have to add in all the things I do around it, and editing time where there's editing.
Life has overhead.
Yeah, and the overhead can be enormous. It's more than the show sometimes. So this is why my wife says, unless that starts making you a little revenue, she said, it's going to be really tough for me to want to let you keep doing it. Because I'm a 62-year-old man and I need my wife's permission in life.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the way it is. That's the way it is. So,
do you have the cold weather we're experiencing?
No. It was 90 something degrees yesterday here.
Yeah, it was 90 here 2 days ago. It's 53 now.
Oh man. Well, it might be cooler today. Let's find out. Let's ask Siri. Hey Siri, what's the weather report for today?
Thunderstorms are expected today.
88 degrees is going to be our high.
Geez,
88 and thunderstorms. Well, it says sunny all the way up till 3 p.m. It's got the little sun, not even the sun with the clouds. The little sun symbol all the way through the day.
Yeah.
By 4 o'clock, it's got a thunderstorm. So between 3 and 4, we got thunderstorms rolling in.
Yeah,
But
we had bad thunderstorms.
I know.
We had bad thunderstorms roll through here the other night, and then it got cold, and I said, I can tell my hand is swelling and in pain, and I'm like, I'm not going to miss this weather.
Yeah, it was like that yesterday. It was really hot. So I got up. I was up at about 5 o'clock yesterday morning, and I kind of quit smoking altogether. On Monday, when I came back from that trip with Heather, I said to Raini, I said, that's it. I'm going to be done smoking. With this pack, I'll finish it. I had about a half a pack of cigarettes. And I go out and I smoke a half a smoke at a shot, unless I feel like doing a full one. And so that pack lasted me all the way till yesterday. And mid-afternoon, I had my last one. It was a full one. And I said, I'm just going to go out with gusto. And I said, I'm just not going to buy another pack of cigarettes,
Okay, guys, I had to hop on and let everybody know the good news. I'm going to hop out because, oh my God, the amount of stuff I have to do between now and the end of the month is insane.
I don't know where my mental track just went, because that's what I was commenting on was the weather yesterday. And I got into the smoking. I don't know why. But, I was going to say, I got up at 5 a.m. Oh, bye, Carlene. And I said I should mow the lawn. And before it gets hot today. And so we've got an electric mower. Battery charged mower.
You're so woke.
I know. I'm so woke. It's for the earth. I do it for the earth, Dave. And no, I do it because it was easy. I bought it on Amazon 2 summers ago, and it's a nice mower. And it shipped over, and you got charged batteries. But it takes you've seen our yard. It's a big yard with all the sections in the backyard and the fence and then beyond the fence and all that. And so it takes 3 charges to get that lawn all mowed. And so I started.
Does it have replaceable batteries?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It takes a couple extra batteries.
Takes 2 of them. Put them in. I could get another set of batteries, but why?
Because then you could just do the yard.
I could just be continuously sweaty. And I started, and that mower is so quiet. You hit the button, hold the lever, and you hit it. Goes, and it's like you can't even hear it standing 12 feet away almost.
Yeah.
And the only thing you hear is when it hits a stick, you know. And so I mowed. I started at about 7 o'clock yesterday morning, mowing the side yard. It's because our neighbors have such a nice yard. They're on the street. We're on a side street, but it's a weird neighborhood, Dave. You've seen it here. It's kind of twists around and stuff. So our side yard, if you're facing the garage, on that right side, it faces the backyard of the people on that street. And they've got a nice backyard and kids and stuff. But they keep it real nice and mowed and neat. And they put in a neat garden right toward the borderline between the two houses. And nice fencing, wire fencing they put up, in a beautiful garden. It's neat, it's clean and everything. And then our grass went for a week without, just a week. And that side yard, and we had dandelions this tall, the white puffy ones, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, just like a foot tall all through and it made their yard look like crap. So I said, I'm just going to get this mowed now. It does need it, but I'm going to mow it down now so it doesn't make them come out to their beautiful yard and go, but Scott and Raini, look at their yard. It makes our yard look crappy. So they probably don't think that I know of, but I went ahead and so I mowed the side yard, and I thought that sound is going to echo into their bedroom windows and stuff in the back of their house. And it was so quiet. They didn't even know I had mowed the lawn until they came out and saw it. And so I started early yesterday was the point, to beat the sun. And I finished. The front yard didn't need it. You know why? The front yard's already turning brown. We're in not a drought yet, but we're in a semi-drought. We need rain here. We put the sprinkler on the front yard last night to try to green it up a little bit. And that's from mowing 10 days ago. And it looks like it hasn't grown at all. So I didn't do the front yard, which is big enough. Side yard, the inner backyard, and the outer backyard. And I know this is riveting conversation, but it was nice. I got it done. The point is, did it before the sun got really hot. Even though I was sweating, my shirt was drenched because it was real humid in the morning. I didn't feel hot. I felt humided out. You know, that's what I don't like about humidity. My shirt was just soaked, and and I'm like, I'm not overheated at all. I'm just I'm sweating from the humidity. And so I got that. And then the humidity dropped. Did you notice that yesterday, Dave? Did you get that over there in Rochester?
I wasn't out enough to notice. Okay. I was outside for a bit and stuff, but I didn't touch that.
Yeah, the humidity dropped because I know about 3 p.m. Rainey and I were still outside doing yard stuff, and she's planting all kinds of plants. I was going to build some of those. I'm going to take pallets. And we just haven't collected up any pallets yet. Split them apart and build some of those above ground where you can put the liner in them and dirt and
above ground planters
in the front yard. We could dig up the front yard. I don't have any problem doing that, but I thought this would be kind of fun to do. And
rabbits stay out of it, and you don't have to bend over to pick your stuff.
That's right. And so elevated beds, and you can make them out of old wood pallets. But Rainey's planting everything in big pots, and they're all over the front yard, from all the big ceramic ones that are like this. And, you know, it reminds me of, do you remember in the 70s, remember Kung Fu with David Carradine, the TV series?
Yeah.
Kwai Chang, when you can carry the burning cauldron, you are ready to leave us. And he has to take this scalding hot cauldron with the embossed dragons on the side, and he has to take his bare arms and pick that up and carry it a certain distance and put it down. That's what those pots remind me of, especially when they sit in the sun. It's like, master, I am ready. But so she's got those all over the front yard. She was doing that all day yesterday, and her mom came over and they did things. I also pruned the big bushes in the back. When you put up when you put up a post, I almost put up a post yesterday, and I thought, it sounds a little entendre-ish. I said, well, so I've mowed the lawn and pruned the bushes today. So trimmed the bushes. So I was out in the back, and we got these two big, they're not lilacs. They're something like they might be, you know what I like is the big white ones. We got these big white balls that appear like lilacs. And I think they're
sure they're not white lilacs?
No, it's the big balls. Those aren't white lilacs. They're called something else. They bloom into these big balls of, and they're just not bloomed yet. But half of them were, there's only two back there, but half of each bush, the bushes are like 6-7 feet tall, and they're all over the place. But half of it was dead branches in there, dead shoots coming up. So I pruned those all back, got a big pile of dead wood for kindling for the fire. And even the pile of dead wood was about 6 feet tall and 6 by 6 big. So clean those all up, and Rainy cleaned up the stuff along the side of the house, and we raked that all out. See, boring talk for a radio show. Yeah, well, we're just talking. That's what we did. So, I could bring up Biden stumbling and tripping again, but
nah, that's just,
it's dumb. After a while, you start to feel sorry. I even see conservative, very anti-Biden broadcasters out there going, you know what? I feel kind of sorry for him at this point. There is an elder abuse that's going on there.
And what's scary to me is that he's just one head trauma away from putting Kamala
Harris being president. Yeah. He's one head trauma away. And you know what?
At that age,
all the time, his age.
Yeah.
Break hips. They are incoming. My own stepfather, my Ukrainian stepfather. My sister found him at the bottom of his stairs about 10 years ago. He was 83.
I had an aunt
fallen down the
tripped
stairs
and fell in the kitchen, hit her head.
Yep.
Killed her.
He laid there, they thought, for at least 2 days, maybe 3 days. My sister's like, I haven't heard from my dad in 2 days. Something's wrong. And she went over to his house over in North Minneapolis, the hood, and found him at the bottom of the stairs. And he was alive, but he only lived a couple more days. After he had a heart attack, they thought, and fell down the stairs. Or had a heart attack after he fell down the stairs. And but he died because of that. And Joe, he's not it's not about age, folks. Look at him.
But...
How old is he? He's 80. Look at Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford's the same age. I think he's 82 even.
Everybody ages.
It's not about age. It's about mental capacity.
When my dad was 80, he was still flying his plane.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. But by 85, he was like, yeah, I think I'll sell it.
Look at William Shatner. He's 92. Now, I did see a picture of him. He has one of those little motorized carts like you see folks in the grocery store.
Yeah, scooters.
He can still walk. You see him walk on the stage all the time. Big, broad steps. He's still manly steps, but I don't think he can do it as much anymore. He's 92. But
you get winded easier and stuff like this. Yeah. So it's just like my mom doesn't have to have a wheelchair, but we use a wheelchair for any time where we have to do long walks because it's easier on her. If it's something short, she gets up and she walks with her walker.
Yep. Ronald Reagan was the last oldest president in office, as Matthew Sainsbury. He was 78 when he was done with his 8 years of presidency. And then his Alzheimer's kicked in really strong after that. Now, they say he obviously started suffering Alzheimer's. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah, it was in his last term, but he wasn't. I mean, it doesn't hit everybody the same way. And in his case, it was coming in slowly. He was getting those senior moments and things like that.
Yeah.
So
the curse of the Shawnee Tippecanoe. Matthew. I think that all Reagan did was prove that it was just a legend. It wasn't a real curse. So, yeah, and you notice he spoke after his presidency, and you could tell, and he even spoke to that. He gave a speech once, and he says, well, he says, my mind isn't the way it used to be, but I'm happy to be here, and I appreciate you having me here. And he was still articulate. But I heard Bill O'Reilly, he wrote his series of books of the killing of, what did he do? One of his first ones, the killing of Lincoln, the killing of Christ. The killing of, but he did the killing of Reagan in his book. And I heard him talking about, I didn't buy that book. I don't have it. Oh, I might. I just might not have read it yet. But I heard him talking about that book, and he said one of the things that he thought drove Reagan's dementia to start was the shooting. And he said this is where you started to see after that a decline. You saw a great deal of caution put into it. It really changed the way he thought about things and the way he approached his presidency. And he thought something tragic like that happening was just, those can be catalysts. They say, even with Joe Biden, I've mentioned this a long time ago, they say something that can be a catalyst to dementia is tragic events. Well, what was the one big tragic event that happened to Joe Biden that he almost dropped out of everything for when his son Beau died? And, what was that? I don't know how many years ago that was. It was during his vice presidency, I believe. Or was it during the Trump administration? I don't know when. But his son, Beau, died. And he was just about done at that point. I think that may have had a big effect on whether you think him a criminal family or not, whatever you believe about him.
Well, they are that, but
criminal families still love their family. Let's put it that way. So, so I do think that that had a lot of bearing on.
I mean, you have to keep in mind they're fleecing the country and everybody, but they're doing it out of love for themselves.
Yeah. So, Scotty, you were for a split second, you sounded just like Reagan. Said Lewis Boyce. Well, Lewis, I used to be able to do a fair Reagan, but I'd have to practice him now.
Well,
Mother
says go again.
Mother says it's time for my nap. No, I say I can't do them right now. But back during the Reagan administration, I did a great Reagan. So, but
because we were listening to him all the time.
Yeah, heard him every day. He was a great president. Man, you can't get over what a great president he was. And the only people that didn't like him were for politics' sake.
I could just listen to him tell stories all day long.
He was like Lincoln in that sense. I heard Lincoln was a great storyteller, and he told stories and jokes all the time.
Well, let's face it, that's an advantage of him having been an actor. He understood the power of the word and how to use it.
Yes. And that's it. He understood how to deliver messages. And he was very good at that. So there's a scene in the movie Lincoln with Daniel Day-Lewis playing Lincoln, the Steven Spielberg movie, where Lincoln wanders into the dining room or the kitchen or something. What's that?
Not the vampire one.
Not the vampire one. Yeah. Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Slayer. That was a great movie, by the way.
It was. I love that movie.
It was a lot of fun. But they show Daniel Day-Lewis's Lincoln. He wanders into the kitchen or the dining room or something in the White House late at night, and he's got a blanket over his shoulders, and he wanders in the dark, and there's a lantern lit there, and a soldier or two sitting at the table, and they stand up and saying, "Oh, sit down." He sits down, and, he comes and sits with them, and he starts telling them stories, and it's based on a true account of him having done that. And I had heard that Lincoln he loved telling a good story, and he loved telling good moral stories, and he was a great humorist, and he had an incredible sense of humor. So if you watch, and by the way, I would recommend that movie. It's long. I don't think it's slow. I didn't see it as a slow movie, but it's not an action movie. So it's a thinking movie. And it's over 3 hours, I do believe. But that was probably one of the best, I got to say, the best portrayals of Lincoln I've ever seen. I think Daniel Day-Lewis captured him true to life. They did say of Lincoln in his day that he was, for as tall, big a man as he was, as powerful as he was, and he still had his southern drawl, and he had somebody described him as having a squeaking voice. Somebody in the out of the 1800s,
sort of a tenor voice.
Sort of a tenor voice, and so they said, Lincoln, if you listen to Daniel Day-Lewis, he probably portrayed Lincoln to the life. You know, he had this higher voice, and he had a bit of his drawl, and you know, you don't lose that stuff. So, but yeah, Daniel Day-Lewis played.
I saw a photo of his great grandson.
Yeah,
trying to think, but current living Lincoln looks so much like him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm going to see if I can find a picture. Images. Oh, yeah. Ralph Lincoln. Oh, man. He does. He's thicker in the face.
But you can see the Lincoln there.
Yeah, you can. It's Meet Ralph Lincoln, the 11th generation descendant of Abraham Lincoln. Not 11 generations out, but well, you can't have 11 generations have gone by since Lincoln, can you?
Well,
maybe.
I think they factor a generation as being 25 years.
Okay, all right. Well, there's a couple of pictures I see of him here. I'm going to share my screen one more time because it's easier than saving it. Take a look at these pictures. Share screen, entire screen, boom, and boom. Let's go over here. Here you go. There he is. Meet Ralph Lincoln, the 11th generation Lincoln with an uncanny resemblance to the 16th president. Take a look at that picture. Now, of course, the eyes are a little different because with these old tintypes or whatever they use to take this photograph, one of those old images, if you even blink or you move your eye, everything is blurred. So he looks very tired-eyed there as opposed to sharp.
Well, and Lincoln was the presidency with the Civil War exhausted him.
Yes, yeah. You can really see the difference. Yeah. Here you go. Here they are. Open. Here's Abraham Lincoln and Ralph Lincoln, descendant of his. There you go. So there's a resemblance. I mean, you can see Lincoln was more gaunt, a little bonier in the face. Oh, Ralph Lincoln, he probably portrays Lincoln. There you go. Over on the side. Here's Ralph Lincoln. There you go. Ralph Lincoln. So there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does kind of look like him, doesn't he? He's got a resemblance. Not as long in the face, but there you go. Stop sharing screen. So, anyway. Oh, my coffee's cold. That's why I got the cold can of dew. So anyways, there he goes. Who was killed by an assassin, Matthew? Oh, Lincoln? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Would Lincoln be as famous today?
Oh, I think he
if
would be.
hadn't been-
I mean, if
think he would be because he did good things, but
he
the
brought us through the Civil
assassination
War
was
and held us together as a union.
He did.
So
did.
because of that, he would be famous. He also emancipated the slaves. Because of that, he would still be
Yes.
famous.
Yes.
I don't think if he'd have survived and not been assassinated, I don't think that would have affected him being one of our greatest presidents.
He's a former president who did amazing things.
But I look at JFK.
Yeah.
JFK hadn't been in office all that long, hadn't accomplished what he wanted to accomplish. He's famous because he was assassinated.
Right. The unfinished presidency.
And because of that, is looked on fondly by both parties. Nobody says anything ill about JFK.
Not much.
But I wonder, had he completed his full term, would that be the same thing?
Make me holla, he says. Thank you, Doug Stack. Grumpy Stack. Appreciate that. Yeah. And yeah, what if a guy like JFK had lived? So be interesting.
But that was clearly a coup, in my opinion.
Yes. It was.
And here's the simple argument on that. If it wasn't, why did they seal all those files for 50 or 75 years or whatever it was?
Right.
You know, if it was really just some wacky lone nut to kill the president, it would have been all exposed, expressed, and be done with it. And stuff. But that's not the case. There was CIA involvement. I think Johnson was involved. There's all these ties to. He was going to do things, or he had planned to do things that went against what the CIA wanted to do, that went against what the bureaucracy wanted to do, and they took him out.
Yes.
And all one has to do is really just look at the Trump presidency.
Yeah.
He proclaimed right up front, I'm going to go in there and clean that swamp out.
Yes.
And as soon as he did that, and even Harry Reid warned him, do not take on the intelligentsia.
Right.
They will crush you.
They will. And they tried.
And they did everything from the moment he announced that he was going to do that. They had people in his campaign, hounding his campaign, investigating. He on the day of his inauguration, they were talking about impeachment. What had he done?
I know.
How ridiculous is that?
The second day of his term was when the first article of impeachment was introduced by Green, Democrat in the House.
And you have to look and say, based on what? What could he have done that first night that would be impeachable?
Exactly.
And it's just, when you look at all the things that they've hit him with over and over and over again.
Yes.
Okay. And come up dry. And when you look at like attacking him every time he'd say something, like when he said, hey, they were wiretapping my campaign office. Yeah. And people are like, oh, that's crazy. Nobody wiretaps anymore. We're not in the night. Their arguments weren't that it didn't happen. Their arguments were the terminology he used, because we're not in the 19th century anymore.
Right.
We don't wiretap. We electronically eavesdrop. It's totally different.
Totally. Exactly.
And when that came out to be proven that they actually were monitoring his calls and doing all that stuff, none of the press didn't come out and say, oh, well, he was right. No, they just said, well, we're just not going to talk about that.
Yeah, well, we'll just move on to something else. That's exactly what happened.
And I can't tell you how many times that he would make some statement, and sometimes you think, oh, that's just kind of him exaggerating. And then 2 weeks later, there'd be some little buried story in the press about how that was right and this was happening within the government or whatever.
Yep.
And they would bury it as far as they could. They still reported on it. but they buried it in like the 16th page of the newspaper or whatever.
Yep.
And tried not to make any connection to what Trump had said.
I will tell you this, and here's an empirical statement that I believe is absolute truth. Everything Trump did is better than anything Biden has done. Well, and he was right about everything.
The other thing that I see is that in his 4 years, well, actually in his first 2 years, he had done more than all the previous three presidents before him combined had gotten accomplished. And you couldn't get the press to report on it.
Yeah.
And I look at all that stuff and I'm blown away by how far we've fallen with our free press, because there is no such thing as a free press. There is no journalism anymore.
Nope. That's like when Trump did the town hall a couple of weeks ago on CNN, which is a network that's really stood against him through his whole presidency, through his whole campaign prior to that. CNN, obviously part of the left, but they had a town hall with Donald Trump. And he came out doing really well. And the audience they had was even an audience that was in support of Trump. And that clapped for him and cheered for him and all of that. Now, what did a lot of people on the left do? How dare you, CNN, having Donald Trump on for a town hall meeting?
Yeah, and making him look good.
And I'm like, I saw somebody say that on my Facebook. And I said, well, why would you be against a news organization having on the front runner of one political party, the front runner with a great majority of people following him, who's challenging the sitting president? Why would you not have him on for a town hall? Yeah. It doesn't matter who you are. Isn't CNN supposed to be a news agency? If you're saying that was wrong for them to do, why would that be wrong for them to have a person who's running for office? Because a news agency isn't supposed to cast judgment on somebody. Well, because of January 6th. And it's like, well,
bullshit.
It's not
January 6th was bullshit.
It was. And we know that. And CNN has pushed a different narrative on that. But they don't make the news. They're not supposed to make the news. They're supposed to report the news.
Exactly.
So even if they reported on January 6th, why would it be wrong for them to have the front runner who was a former president running for president again? Why wouldn't they have him on there? Well, so there was that. And he went on CNN and came out with flying colors. And I don't know if there's anything else I was going to say about that other than that. And so, you have to ask the question, what's being promoted out there and why? So,
and I'm just going to clarify, when I say January 6th was bullshit, it's not that people didn't go into the Capitol, because they did. It's not that people didn't do things they shouldn't have done, because some people did. But to refer to it as an
inside job?
No, that's not. What do they call it?
Insurrection.
None of those people were armed.
Nope.
When you look at the actual Capitol security cam footage, the majority of the people that entered the Capitol building were more like tourists than rioters. They were picking up brochures and looking at statuary and wandering around.
One of the guys even straightened the velvet cords between little pylons to keep you on the path. One guy, there was one of those pylons was out of line, and so they're walking, and you see him, and he reaches over and he straightens out the pylon.
Yep.
I mean, there's stuff like that.
And what I have often said, having looked at that footage, if you compared that to a normal day of tourists going through the Capitol, the normal day of tourists would be more hectic and chaotic looking than that afternoon.
They were very orderly. Now, were there people who were breaking windows and stuff like that? Yeah, you had that.
But there's an interesting thing about those people, okay?
Mm-hmm.
There's a handful of people that we see that had ropes and ladders to scale the wall and do this, that, and the other thing. Those weren't people that were at the rally that morning. Nobody came from out of town and brought a ladder and a bunch of rope and went down and listened to the speech and then went down. These people were already stationed there, which makes me wonder, were they FBI people that were there to help with this, getting the crowd ginned up?
Yep.
What's Ryan saying?
Rapid Dog. He says, I watched January 6th as it happened on live streams. What did you get out of it as you saw it happen? Rapid Dog. Just curious.
They tried to make it sound like these were armed people. Not a single person there, except for the police and the FBI that were on site, were armed. None of the Trump ralliers were armed.
It was interesting when Ashley Babbitt was shot and killed for climbing on the door frame. She landed on the ground, and who came up right behind her? There was somebody in a suit and tie that was right behind her and went down right on his knees next to her to see how wounded she was. But right behind him, there were a dozen cops with rifles and riot gear on.
Yeah.
And they came up, and they weren't like, everybody clear it. And, no, they just came up behind, and they were tending to her as well. They were right behind on the stairway.
Well, and the cop that shot her through a door.
Yeah.
He was not in danger. He had no need to shoot.
No.
She was not armed, and she was a vet.
John Senecal says the bad protesters also all wore black masks. I didn't see a lot of black masks from January 6th. It's interesting.
I don't either, but at the same time, again, that makes me wonder, were these paid professionals that were brought in to gin up the crowd and make them look bad?
Yep.
And they had masks on so that they couldn't be identified because what? They're FBI people?
Yeah.
CIA people?
Rapid Dog says after it was all over, it looked like a regular high school class tour. Everyone left in an orderly fashion. And by the way, the guy who wore the Viking outfit with the horns and all that, with all the big talk is the crazy, wild man, and he was in jail for 2 years.
The judge threw the book at him. He had a 6 or 7 year sentence.
I think.
And then when Tucker released all this other footage, that judge reversed that order and set him free.
You know why? Because it shows him. You remember tell it, Dave. What did they show in that video?
So he is walking with 4 or 5 cops through the Capitol and having conversation. He picks one of those rope stanchion things had been knocked over. He sets it up. He says, "What's this?" And they said, "Oh, that's the library room or whatever." And they unlock the door so he can look in there.
Yeah.
And they're walking around and they show him Nancy's office and they show him different things. And they get to doors that are locked and they pull out their keys and unlock doors for him and stuff.
Yeah.
He wasn't violent in any way. He was chatting with the cops the whole time. The cops were chatting back with him. It was like they gave him a tour through the building. He went into the House floor. He said a prayer for everyone and for the government. And there was nothing. I mean, the way he was described in the court to the judge by the prosecution, who didn't allow any of this footage to be seen, made him seem like he was a downright terrorist.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
He wasn't allowed, and his attorneys weren't allowed to see this footage, which exonerated him.
Yeah.
And this is the problem when you are doing a court case and you're not allowing the exculpatory evidence to be entered in it.
Narrative.
And so when the judge saw the final footage, he was like, well, you people lied to me. You didn't show me this footage. This changes everything about the way this man behaved.
Yep. And he was outside telling everybody, he says, everybody be peaceable. He's got this horns helmet still on.
Yep.
Everybody be peaceable. Time to go home. Don't destroy anything. Don't do anything. Be orderly. Be peaceable.
Now, I don't have a problem with them prosecuting people that actually broke property. Because, let's face it, it's in the Capitol. It's already historic because it's been there for 100 years or better.
Yep.
Okay? Don't be breaking property. It's the people's property. It's the people's house. I believe you have the right to walk through there in an orderly fashion. I believe you have the right to protest there in an orderly.
Yes.
Look at in your own state of Wisconsin, when the people were upset with the governor and they took over the Capitol building for what, a week?
Yeah.
Okay. They had, in my opinion, they had a right. It's the people's house. They have the right to sit in and protest there. Okay. If it's okay for the Democrats to do that, why isn't it okay for the Republicans to do that?
Right.
It was no more violent than they were during the stuff against your governor, I don't know, 10 years ago.
Well, what was the thing more recently, the stuff in what state was it? Was it in Tennessee or Kentucky? I can't remember, where they ruled against the trans having trans show with children present.
Yeah.
As a basic thing. And yet all these trans people storming the Capitol, they had the state police out there and they were nasty. They were in the state Capitol building shouting and screaming and knocking things over and challenging the police. And I heard so many commentators say, oh, is this an insurrection? It would be by the same definition. No.
Yeah.
But the press allows that, and the law, your politicians allow it because it's a political thing.
It's just a protest.
It's a protest. Oh, it's just a protest. And of course, you couldn't compare.
Let's take a step back to two events that happened in the Washington Mall. You have the what did they call themselves during the Bush years? Tea Partyists. You had the Tea Party had their big, huge thing on the Washington Mall. And when they left, it was cleaner than when they got there.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you had the 99 percenters do their big thing. Yep. And when they left, it looked like the aftermath of Woodstock. There was garbage everywhere. Yeah. There was tents crushed on the grounds. There were all this stuff. There was all kinds of violence that happened during their event. There were rapes and things like that. None of that happened under the Tea Party people.
No.
And really, here's another thing where the press plays people against each other. If you look at what the 99 percenters wanted from the government, and you look at what the Tea Partyists' list of demands were, there's more in common than they are apart.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to get rid of the corruption and crony what do they call it? Crony capitalism, crony whatever, where they have the politicians and the bankers are working together to make themselves rich and all of that. Both sides. Let's get rid of that. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
That's not what we're sending you to Washington to do.
And the big thing now, the left has for 2 years been trying to build January 6th as their big magic balloon for the upcoming presidential election. And they keep pushing it. And you know what? America doesn't care.
Because we've seen enough of the truth.
We've seen enough of the truth. And America's like, no, what we care about is taxes. We care about economy. We care about the fact that food costs more, that it cost of living. We care about the border. We care about illegal immigration. We care about these things more than we care about your trumped up January 6th.
Yeah.
And so these are the things people aren't going to vote in 2024 on trumped up charges for January 6th. They're going to vote on who's going to fix this mess we're in.
Yep, exactly.
That's what most people will vote on. And it's funny. There's an old guy down the road from us, really nice place. As you come in, Dave, I don't know if you've ever seen this. You come in from the opposite end, as if you're coming in from Hudson into Somerset. And he had this big sign on his property, Veterans for Biden. And it was up there, and I thought, man, what's this dude smoking? And that sign came down very recently. He's still there. He's still alive. But recently that sign came down. He had that up for almost 2 years after the election. And he's finally taken that down. And there's no sign promoting Biden up there anymore.
Because the latest thing that Biden did is he went in and undid the things that Trump did to help the VA.
Yep. Yep, he did.
Why would you do that? How does that benefit anyone?
Because what did he do the first 90 days in office? The first week in office, Biden signed executive order after executive order after executive order
to undo Trump's work. Yeah.
Out what they were attempting to do was erase Donald Trump's existence as a president of the United States. Anything he did, they tried to undo. Didn't matter what it was. Now, we'll do our own legislation to fill in. And then they found, how many times over the last 2 years have we said, have you heard it said that the Biden administration is now doing this and calling it this instead of just having left what Trump did in place, because it's the same thing. They're finding that they've made a lot of mistakes by eradicating the thing. They tried to eradicate the history of a president, and they're still trying. So good luck. You don't have to like Trump. I'm just saying, be common sense. You can even like Biden. You can be a leftist. You can vote left. You can vote Democrat. You don't have to like this, but you do need to, as a responsible citizen, stand back and look at the history of it.
Try and be fair.
And say, wait a minute, this isn't right. Shouldn't have been done this way.
If we're going to screw over anybody, it doesn't matter who it is, you're screwing over anybody on their legal rights, then they can do it to you.
Yep, that's right. And
the rule of law should be the rule of law, not one rule of law for Republicans and conservatives and another rule of law for Democrats.
Yeah.
Okay. And if we're sending people there to write law, those laws shouldn't be written to benefit themselves at our cost.
Yeah.
And when you allow congressmen to do insider trading, when they know what bills are coming up and what things are going to get passed and not get passed, and how that's going to affect things like energy corporations and things like that, and they're out there trading on the market and making huge amounts of money, and then passing a bill that tanks that system, and they sell all their stock the day before they pass the bill. So they've rode those stocks up, profited off of them, pulled that cash out, pass a bill that tanks those corporations and stuff. The average everyday citizen takes that in the shorts with their pension checks and whatever that they're through their 401ks and all that. And they walk away with profits.
Yeah.
And it's not just Democrats doing it. Republicans are doing it too. And nobody should be doing it.
Nope. Nobody should.
And we made a big stink under Bush about that. And they passed a law saying that Congress people couldn't trade in stocks. But they put a sunset clause on that said if nobody says anything or does anything with this bill in 2 years, it'll go away.
Right.
And nobody paid attention to that. And 2 years later, it was okay for him to do it again. And Bush was out of office, and a Republican or a Democrat was in there or whatever. So they're doing their thing.
By the way, Philip Blair asked a question. Is it true that DeSantis is skull and bones, a bonesman, like John Kerry, George W. Bush, and so on? Which, if you guys don't know what that is all about, you have to look up the history of the skull and bones.
It's Yale.
It's
a
Yale 322.
Is it Yale or Harvard?
I think it's Harvard. I think.
Oh, maybe yeah.
Yale.
And DeSantis went to both Yale and Harvard.
Now the question: it's called the Brotherhood of Death. It's an undergraduate, senior, secret student society at Yale University, and it's in New Haven, Connecticut, and Skull and Bones has become a cultural institution known for its powerful alumni. This is from Wikipedia. It's powerful alumni and various conspiracy theories. It's one of the big three societies at Yale, and the other two being Scroll and Key and Wolf's Head. Now, a CBS 60 Minutes news story from 2003 we're talking 20 years ago, suggested that the organization is actually very small, with about 15 senior members inducted each year.
Right.
And,
but it's not the members that are in. It's once you're in for life.
You're in for life. And so it took weeks to track down the truth, but the answer is simply no. Ron DeSantis isn't a member. Not that he couldn't be. It couldn't have been. It's who cares? But it was confirmed through well-placed sources that DeSantis was not in Skull and Bones. The source, however, would not rule out the governor's potential membership in other societies at Yale.
So here's what I'll tell you about Skull and Bones.
Yep.
So, like in most fraternities, you take an oath to back and support your brothers, and to, if your brother comes to you for aid, you give them aid type thing. Most fraternities have this sort of a thing in it. But when you take a look at the fact that you're dealing with young men at Harvard who are more than likely going to become prominent people in our society based on history, okay, they're more likely to run for office. They're more likely to be appointed to cabinet positions. They're more likely to end up being judges or governors or senators or what have you, okay? Yeah. Because of their educational background, because of the families they come from, so on and so forth, okay? Now you have all these alum. It's not the kids that are in school that are members, who are the active members of the fraternity, but it's all the alumni who are now Supreme Court judges or cabinet officials or a president or a vice president or a senior official in the CIA or whatever. And it's these people who then, as these young seniors are graduating, say, I need an intern here at the CIA, or I need someone as a personal assistant here at the White House, or whatever, that open doors to allow those young men to move up the ladder quickly, okay? And then you get to a position where you have a bunch of alumni who, if you look across, hold positions in the House and the Senate, in governorships, as cabinet officials, as presidents. Now an organization has a lot of power without, and I'm doing little air quotes here, power, without being official, where the president can say, hey, I really need to get this put through, and he puts a couple of brothers in charge of making that happen. Or you have a CIA guy say, we want to stop this, and he has the ability to set those wheels in motion, both officially, but also behind the scenes with brothers to help make that stuff happen.
Yes.
That's where the concern comes in. Now, I don't think that it's ever amounted to anything that's that much. It's just like people go on about the brothers that were Masons that were presidents, especially in our founding years. But if you look historically at where the Masons came from and what was wanting to be done there early on, the concept was, let's form a government free of the Pope and free of kings, with a separation of church and state, so that if you want to have a religion, you're free to have whatever religion you want.
Yep.
But we don't want the religion to tell the government this has to be the religion, and we don't want the government to tell religions you can't believe this or believe that.
You can believe what you want in a religion as long as it does not violate the Constitution for others.
Exactly. And so what did we get? We ended up with a government that was like that. A secular government, free of the rule of the Pope and free of a king overhead of us, where we decide ourselves as the people how we're going to move forward.
Some of the context to this is Thomas Jefferson was a huge anti-papist.
Thanks, Rapid Dog.
Very much against popery and the Catholic Church. So, what did Rapid Dog say? Oh, yeah,
it's Yale. It's not Harvard. It's Yale.
And by the way, as I was saying here, they're probably referring to, if there's anything at all, was that DeSantis was part of St. Elmo's Society at Yale, which it's described as this open secret society, quote unquote, again, whatever that means, where 8 men and 8 women are selected each year based on scholastic standing. And
it's a fraternity.
Their seriousness of purpose, maturity, individuality, other achievements at the university. DeSantis's name is even listed on the Wikipedia page under the notable members of the St. Elmo Society. So it's not a big secret. So it's out there.
Yeah.
So interesting. That's probably what all that is based on. So anyway, there you go. Do you think anybody who is a Mason could be elected president today? Asks Ryan Gale.
Yeah, I do. I don't think there's I don't understand the stigma against Masonic stuff. So here, when you go back, just not even, you go back to the 50s, you know, we were openly marching in parades. It wasn't, people misunderstood. It's not a secret society. It's a society that has secrets. Okay. Yes. And it's how we bind each other in our promise to each other. Okay?
How can it be a secret society when there's a Masonic hall in every neighborhood almost?
Right. And we used to be active in all the civic parades and civic functions and stuff. All the leaders of the community were brothers. Everybody knew that. You know?
Yes.
Part of what happens is following World War II, we had a huge influx of veterans because they were missing the brotherhood that they had, the band of brothers that they had when they were over in Europe.
Yes.
So they come back to America. They're missing that camaraderie, and they're dealing with the same things that all vets deal with. They're dealing with PTSD and stuff like that. And one of the things that helps with that is to hang out with your brothers and communicate and be able to talk through that stuff.
Yes.
And one of the biggest benefits of Masons is to be able to sit with a group of brothers and talk about your issues, your mental health and whatever else, things you wouldn't trust to talk about to just anybody. Okay.
Yeah.
And people say, well, why don't you let women in? Because men will talk more freely about those things when it's just a group of men and they're not talking in front of women and they're also then, by the lack of women there, you don't have somebody that's like trying to hit on the girl across the table or whatever. You're just having open communication. Okay. So what happens though is those vets come in and they're from a generation where they all through the war, they were told loose lips sink ships. If we tell you something and it's supposed to be secret, you keep it to yourself. And so they come into this organization and they take that secret part to heart. Okay. And we can see this in the generational growth of the lodge, that they don't even talk to their own sons about what Masonry is.
They let their sons learn that, do they not? When they join?
No, but that's just it. They didn't. They would say Wednesday night or whatever, and they're going to lodge, and that's all the family would know. He would leave for a few hours and go to lodge and come home, and he wouldn't talk about what they talked about, what they did, or anything. Okay. They were still throwing fundraisers that were open to the public.
The DeMolays and things like that. So,
yep, I was a DeMolay.
I always thought that would be a good thing for Flynn.
But the vast majority of that generation didn't talk about what they did at the lodge, even to their own kin. And so what happens is their sons don't join. So as you're going into the 70s, their sons aren't joining lodge, but their grandkids in the 80s are wanting to join because now grandpa's talking more freely.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, well, this sounds cool. I want to do this. So you have a generation that skips, and it's seriously affected our overall national membership. Because now we have World War II vets dying by the hundreds every day.
Yeah.
And so
I like Randall Carlson, by the way, Philip Blair. He's a friend of mine. Yeah.
Yes, I know Randall well as well. We've attended a number of Masonic retreats together.
That's very cool. Yeah, he was speaker 2 years at the Paradigm Symposium.
Yeah,
that I put on. So
we do an annual retreat for the York Rite every autumn, and he's been to more than half of the ones that I've been to, I think.
By the way, John Seneca mentioned plans within plans, Paul Atreides. He's referring to something mentioned in chapter 2 of Dune, Frank Herbert's book novel Dune. And here's just a short reading from that. Listen carefully, Fade, the Baron said. Observe the plans within plans within plans. Fade Routha nodded, thinking this is more like it. The old monster is letting me in on secret things at last. He must really mean for me to be his heir. And there are several tangential possibilities, Peter said. I indicate that House Atreides will go to Arrakis. We must not, however, ignore the possibility the Duke has contracted with the Guild to remove him to a place of safety outside the system. Others in the circumstances have become renegade houses, taking family atomics and shields and fleeing beyond the Imperium. The Duke, too proud a man for that, the Baron said. And so it goes on in that chapter. But think of, John brought up that quote from the book, and I thought that's appropriate. Plans within plans within plans. And Uncle Dave, by the way, you look more like Gandalf at this moment than I've ever seen.
I know I've got a super Gandalf thing happening today.
You got a Gandalf thing going on today. So the spice must flow. Yes. So
and just to finish up with the Masonry thing. So we're not a religion, but you have to have a belief in God to join, because you have to, and it doesn't, you can have, that God can be any God you want it to be. But we ask you to swear on your book of law when you take your oath, and you, if you don't have a book of law, if you don't have a faith, how does your oath mean anything?
Right, right.
It's as simple as that.
Now, I had somebody when I first, 15 or more years ago, was looking into the Masons, and they always have a front guy that kind of talks to you, you know, and tries to, I don't know what you call it or how it's put together, but it's kind of like they appoint somebody and say, hey, talk to Scotty, get some information from him and so on, and just see what he's all about. Kind of a front runner. It's not a big secret. It's
no.
You know, he told me. And he said something about, well, your credit isn't very good and you seem to be an atheist. And I said, whoa. I said, I'm not an atheist. And I said, my credit. I said, what's my credit got to do with anything? And why are you checking my credit?
So let me just address that. So, and this is less important now than it used to be. But
everybody's got bad credit these days.
Well, the big real estate bubble thing really kind of messed with everybody. Lots of people ended up filing bankruptcy that never would have before. The premise about that, and that again is something that's coming out of the 50s, where you have all your civic leaders and everything, and Masonic Charity is there to help take care of people, and what they're trying to make sure is that you're responsible as a citizen. You pay your bills, you take care of your family, and so on and so forth. Okay, you're an upright man in the eyes of the community.
There it is.
Okay, so there's that, but there's also that you're not joining so that you can turn around and say, oh, I could really use 10 grand because I'm behind on my house payments or whatever, you know, because and it's not that if you ask, you will be given, but the reality is when you ask for aid, you'll be given aid.
Yeah.
And so they're protecting their house in essence. Sure. You know, that they're not bringing in a bunch of people that are just joining because they see it as a purse to tack onto.
Right.
And you know, I sat in the East not 2 years in a row, but I sat in 2020, our first year of COVID, and then again in 2022. When I went into office, I said, okay, this COVID thing is with them closing down all these, it's going to affect everybody. We're going to have a lot of brothers that are going to have financial problems this year.
Yes.
And I said, we will take care of them. You know, we if we have to sell some of the stocks, or we have to do whatever we need to do to move money around to make that happen, we will take care of them, and we will figure it out down the road financially, because we're not going to turn brothers away that are having financial hardship, that are completely uncontrollable to themselves.
Right.
And we did. We took care of people, and we gave out a lot of relief. And I don't feel bad about giving out relief, but I will probably have an asterisk near my name because of the 100 and some years of our lodge. I think I spent the most as a master.
Philip Blair asks, are Masonic dues that expensive?
No, in fact, every single lodge sets their own dues. Our dues were like $90 a year. This year, Grand Lodge tacked on about $70 to our lodge because of what they're going to charge our lodge per member. So we've had to raise our dues up, and what we're kind of pushing towards
$160, which is what, $16 a month?
Yeah, so we're moving to about 150, 160, somewhere in there.
Right.
And we have some people that are on fixed incomes that are concerned about that. We have other people that's no big deal. They just what we have finally done is come up with a way to do it online and do a monthly payment. So instead of it being coming out of one paycheck, you can do 10 or 20 bucks a month type thing. And by the end of the year, but you have to have your active dues card at the beginning of the year. And so the way we're doing that is we're prepaying for next year. So by the end of the year, I will have next year's dues paid.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
And so it's coming out this year. I'm up current, and I'm paying towards next year, so that when the first rolls around, I have an active dues card, and I'm all square with the lodge. And then I start paying for the year after. And it's taken some time to kind of work that out with Grand Lodge and work that out with the individual lodges to do it in such a way that everybody was comfortable with it, and that everybody's being charged the same in essence. And when I say charge the same, it's not I'm paying the same at my lodge as somebody else's lodge is paying, but everybody in our lodge is paid the same. We're not allowed to have different rates for different people.
Right.
Okay. Now, one of the things we had a situation, we've had a lot of people that are elderly and on fixed incomes, and they're living in nursing homes and stuff. And so their kids are taking care of their bills and don't understand what the dues fees are for. And they're like, well, they're not active. They don't go to lodge anymore. But those people have already put in 50 years. They want a Masonic funeral. They want these things that are going to come with their 50 years of service.
Yes.
And the kids don't always understand that. And so we've sat down with a lot of those kids and explained how the dues work, what the dues are for, and had the conversation with those elderly brothers so that they know they need to talk to their kids and
yes,
square all that up if these are things they want. Now, one of the things I said, because they were going through the rolls, Grand Lodge wanted us to get rid of anybody that hadn't paid dues for X number of years. And I said, well, I'm not going to cut any former past master out of the line because his kids don't understand what's going on. I said, the lodge will just pick up those fees and we'll just pay them. And we voted on that, and everybody agreed that we weren't going to dump our most senior members just because they're in a situation that it's out of their control. They're no longer in control of their own finances and such. So,
which is admirable. I like that.
Yeah. These people we wouldn't have a lodge today if these brothers hadn't been there working hard when they were younger.
Mm-hmm.
And to say, well, you're 80 years old and we never see you because now you live in Florida at a nursing home, we're just going to cut you loose. No. You're still a valued brother to us. We don't want to cut you loose.
Sure.
And we have the conversation. And in some cases, they didn't know their kids weren't paying the bill. and said, no, that's important to me. In other cases, we've had kids come forward and say, I didn't understand what this is, and we explain it to them. They have since joined a lodge themselves, wherever they're at.
Yeah.
And join their parents' legacy and such. But again, because there's that generation that just kept their mouths shut and they didn't talk to their kids and explain what Masonry was and why they were there. And then their kids find out about it and go, well, I've been looking for something like that. And we have a lot of youth join us because society has eliminated ritual, and young men often need ritual.
Yes.
And they don't understand that. They're seeking something, and they don't know what it is they're seeking. And then, they'll fall in line with one of us and we're talking to them, and it's so obvious they're already walking the path. They're already Masons at heart. They're just not Masons in act. And you start bringing them to lodge and letting them see what the fellowship is like and everything. And then it doesn't take long for them to ask for a petition to join.
Yeah.
But they have to ask. We don't ask you to be a Mason. You ask us.
I put a show up over at on my Patreon site called Missing Fathers, Missing Rituals. And you mentioned that magic word, rituals.
Yep.
And I've got a quote on here from Drexel Deal. His book, The Fight of My Life, is wrapped up in my father. And he said, my research continues to amaze and baffle me. As human beings, we're geniuses. What we didn't get from the home, we find ways of getting elsewhere. It's evident then, when one looks at the stats, that we don't have a teenage pregnancy problem. Looks at the stats, we don't have a... Okay, let me start that sentence again. He says, it's evident then, when one looks at the stats, we don't have a teenage pregnancy problem, and we don't have a street gang problem. I will even suggest that we don't have a drug and alcohol problem, nor do we have a crime problem. Rather, these are only the symptoms that we are experiencing, and the real problem is broken homes that result in broken lives. And this, I think, is where that's taking it to on a little different track than you were making. But I think kids need fathers in the home.
They do.
That's boys
extremely
need
important.
Rituals, rites of passage, as Philip Blair just said, in every culture. Yes.
And the DMLA, which is our youth organization, not unlike Scouts, it's there for specific purposes. It's there to help young men start forward on an honorable path in life.
Yeah.
And understanding what their civic duties are and living good civic lives.
Yeah. And that's a good thing. It's something I had tried to join the Masons once, went through the whole official thing and was rejected because there was one person. I'm not supposed to know this. Somebody shared this with me from within the Masons. I won't say who, so he doesn't get in trouble. But somebody said there was one person who voted against you because they thought you needed to go attend the lodge in your own local community rather than drive over here. And so they voted against me. And then, so I was voted down. And, and I never tried again, but, and I was a good number of miles away. What is the policy on that? Do you have to join? And by the way, I tried to join in my own community out here in Western Wisconsin, small town. I tried no less than half a dozen times to contact the lodge that existed. I heard it was comprised primarily of a bunch of octogenarians, but
and is no longer with us. That lodge has been put up for sale.
It's been put up for sale. I tried the other community I was in out here in Somerset. Couldn't find anything. Tried I think it was the Wisconsin, or I can't remember who it was. Travis Thorpe said, write to the Grand Master or something of that lodge or this area or this district or something. I never even got a response from him.
Yeah.
And so it was like, was Wisconsin Masonry shut down or something? And
well, and I don't know what's going on in Wisconsin. I do know that
blackballed. Yes, Philip Blair.
That the big issue was you were a Wisconsin resident wanting to join a Minneapolis or Minnesota lodge, and
which was
their
only a
concern was
45-minute
whether
drive.
or not they could legally take you as a Wisconsin resident.
But everybody else in the lodge voted yay. So
yeah, it just takes one. It just takes one. That's the frustrating part about it. But when you're voted in unanimously.
There it is. And so I was told, you should try again. And, and I just never did. So it's one of those things. I like the organization. I love a lot of the men that are in that organization that are good friends of mine, Uncle Dave included. And it's kind of funny that a lot of the people I did the festival with Dave, a lot of those men were Masons in the same lodge with Dave.
There's really 2 lodges in South Minneapolis that house about all of the Renaissance people that are Masons.
Yeah.
The Minnehaha
so I had all
Lodge
those
and the
friends
Golden Lodge.
saying, now they don't go out proselytizing, but I had my close friends that would say, you should come check out the meetings. And so I did. And I said, I'd like to do this. And they said, oh, would you really? Well, I can help you with that. And so they aren't out there, come on, join up, running fundraising and join campaigns, recruiting campaigns.
We don't function that way.
And but that's when I found out a lot of my friends, a lot of people were friends of mine, I didn't even know were Masons. All of a sudden, I went to one of those meetings. I go, hey, and all these guys I knew, and they go, hey, Scotty, good to have you here tonight. And it was a few I knew, like Eric Nelson and friends of Dave's and mine, but who was also a fellow pirate with Dave out at the festival. But I saw lots of people that I knew. So,
well, Chuck is a brother.
Yep. And Chuck Henriksen, by the way, he's been on the show a couple of times. And now I start to feel like I'm too old. I'm in my 60s.
You're never too old.
I should have joined when I was 30. And
you're never too old.
So, yeah, I know.
We've raised octogenarians. Not me personally, but I know lodges that have.
There you go. I know John.
And it's interesting. So, there's this great story of a guy who was in med school. And I'm trying to think, it would have been back in the 40s or 50s or whatever. Joined the lodge, got active in the lodge, graduated, and he and his wife took a residency someplace in another town. And so he sort of stepped out of Masonry, and off he went to do his work stuff. And he did his work stuff, and then life happened. He had kids and this, that, and the other thing. And in his 70s or 80s, came back to the lodge and said, I want to get active again. And got himself active, worked himself through the line, just was doing all kinds of stuff. But,
I would do it.
Dues up the whole time. And just, he was a brother, but he was an absent brother because life had taken over, and it happens.
Raini really promoted me. She really wanted me to join the Masons. You really ought to do that. That's a good thing.
So we have a saying, we make good men better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we have from that, and there's lots of wives that'll come in and attest to this, that you come home a better husband.
Yeah.
And a better father. And you're a great father and you're a great husband. I'm just saying,
thanks.
We improve that. And
so
lots
for years. Yeah.
Good friend of ours who's a brother who is from out at Festival. You'd know him if I said his name. His wife often will say, it's Thursday night. Don't you have someplace to be? Oh, yeah. I got to get to lodge.
Oh, yeah.
Because he comes home a better person, and he has turned he used to have anger issues. He used to have a lot of different problems. He has really turned his life around.
That's good.
By being involved in Masonry. And
anger issues.
And he is a much better person today than he was 4 or 5 years ago. And it's because of Masonry. And his wife sees that and pushes that. And his wife will tell any wife of anybody who's thinking to join, oh my God,
4 or
get
5
them
years
into
ago, it
masonry.
wasn't the person I knew, was it?
I don't know which one we're talking about, but you do know this person, and
the
you
one
know
I
his
had
wife as well.
the one I had problems with.
No,
Old friend from almost 30 years.
I don't think it's somebody you had problems with, but it's somebody that you would know. Carr knows them. They're good friends of Carr's.
Oh, I know who it is then. Yeah, I'm aware. So. Yeah, I had a friend who was in the Masons. Who was a friend of mine, Dave's and mine, for 26 years. And he ended a friendship with me over who I voted for, and not the last election, the election before that. So like 5 years ago.
Oh,
and
him.
He
Yeah.
got nasty. And
don't understand that at all. Yeah, he was a lodge brother. And I
even asked him, I said, is this what they teach at lodge? Being a little flippant in there, but I'd known him for 26 years up to that point. And all of a sudden, my politics was a reason to not even have a cup of coffee with me.
2016 turned so many people on their heads. I know. I just shake my head at how people let politics. See, we don't discuss politics or religion in lodge because they're divisive things.
The open lodge meetings that you had at lodge that were open to anybody who wanted to come,
fellowship
and see what it was like, and we had a good time. We didn't talk politics, so
we do our best to avoid it. We've had philosophical discussions that are political, but only political in that there have been philosophical divides drawn through society based on politics and such. And the way we conduct those is you're not allowed to talk specifics about specific politicians or whatever, but you can talk in theory about why this group of people believe this over this group of people believing that.
Right. And Philip Blair, you're right. They don't talk the politics and religion in that sense, but this wasn't official. This was just from my old friend who was part of that lodge, who, didn't even afford me a cup of coffee and a conversation face to face. We've been closest friends for years, and boom, done.
And part of that is that we had at the time groups of men in both parties that were active in the party.
Yeah.
And when the 2016 election came along, they were so split and divided. And it wasn't what was said in lodge, it was what was said online that created so much controversy and so much division. And it was horrific.
That's it.
And we're still paying a price for that today. And I don't get it, because I love all my brothers. I don't care what you think philosophically as far as politics and stuff like that. Or we have 7 different religions in our lodge. That's how diverse we are. We have multiple races. We have straights and gays and all of that. And none of that matters. And yet, because some people were so Trump and some people were so not Trump, it created this huge schism. And I just shake my head and don't understand it.
Yeah.
I just absolutely am at a loss for that.
There isn't much that would cause me to lose a friendship over politics.
I know.
The only time I ever come down on anybody on politics or things like that is what they're abusive to other people. And or they are abusive to me. Even with my friend who said all the stuff, we had a few emails that exchanged. I was like, dude, I still love you. You're still my friend. I don't care who you
I look back
for.
at the 1860s, during the Civil War, even in the midst of the Civil War, you had brothers fighting brothers on both sides. And the issues were far more important then, because you're talking slavery or not slavery. You're talking leaving the Union or staying in the Union.
Right.
So I could understand the politics of that day dividing lodges. And yet there are numerous cases on both sides where, and one of the story that comes to mind, a Union Army had taken over a plantation. and the troops were literally looting this plantation house.
Wow.
And as somebody was bringing out a stack of things. On top of it was a Masonic Bible, and an officer, seeing that, ordered everything to come to a complete halt. And he said, "Ma'am, is your husband a Mason?" And she said, "He is." And he ordered everyone to take everything back into that house.
Back.
Everything goes back in. He posted sentries around the place. He says, if anybody walks through that door that she doesn't allow in, shoot them. I don't care what color their uniform is.
There you go.
Okay. And because brother did not transgress against brother.
Yep.
There were cases on the battlefield where a Mason would get shot, and he would give a grand hail sign for help, and brothers from the other side would come to his aid, make sure he didn't get shot again, apply first aid, do what they could to get him to safety, whether that was one of their own hospitals or to his own lines.
Right.
Okay. That's how brothers treat each other.
Well, you know what, Dave? We're going to have a conversation on this. Maybe
we should. And in fact, we should. I was just thinking we should put together a show with several. We have several brothers that are listeners to your show that are good friends, and maybe we do some sort of a panel talk some night.
Let's do it.
There will be things we can't talk about, but very little that we can't talk about, and so much that we can talk about.
Right.
There's so much misconception out there about what Masonry is.
Yeah. Well, let's do it. As for now, it's after 11 o'clock on a Sunday morning.
Yep, and I promised the folks that I would do breakfast at 10 o'clock for them.
Well,
so
you go take care of your mom and dad, and good to see you, brother. I love you. I'll talk to you soon.
Love you too, man.
All right, guys, that's it. We're pretty much done for the day. Let's get on with our Sundays. Noon out east. 11 a.m. here. It's 9 a.m. on the left coast. And so you go out and enjoy your day. Hey, Kelly Bell, good to see you. Oh, thank you. And for those if I missed any of you who are in here, sorry about that. We did the little roll call at the beginning. And so I want to thank everybody for being here. As you can see, the graphic that is up right now, it's been up for a few minutes. For less than a cup of coffee, you can get a month's worth of shows over on my new Patreon channel. There it is, patreon.com/Scotty Roberts. Go on over, join the channel. Tomorrow will be our first day broadcasting the Intrepid radio program from Patreon. If you're not a member, you won't be able to see it. So all of those of you who like this show, have supported this show, if you got the price of a little less than a cup of coffee, I think the average cup of coffee is $4.19 from Starbucks across the nation. So for $4, you can become a member of my channel once a month. And if you like the show, give me that cup of coffee money, and we'll make the show happen and hopefully improve and get better and better. So thank you, everyone, for being here today. I appreciate your time. And you go have a fun Sunday now with your family or whatever else you got planned. And I love you all. Thanks a lot. Live long and prosper.